Sludge, I do, buckaroos, and how the heck are you? I'm going to be Tom the Whiskey Whisperer for the purpose of this video, and I want to try something out. I was thinking about doing something, so I've got my And a Chaser podcast hosted by, well, there's three of us technically, but it's Jersey Johnny's channel, but it's technically hosted by three of us, Jersey Johnny, the Beer Samurai, and myself. So I had an idea for a cocktail, but I always need to do a tester first before I run it. Well, no, I don't always. Last week I ran it cold and it worked out, but I wanted to do a tester here. This is somewhere between a Rob Roy and a Manhattan. The reason I say that is I'm not using a Scotch. Well then, Tom, if you're not using a Scotch, it's a Manhattan. Well, here's why it's sort of an amalgam, is because I'm using a malt whiskey, small batch, 90 proof malt whiskey from Endeavor Brewing and Spirits out of Columbus, Ohio. Now, what's different about this one is, well, it's a malt whiskey. Our single malt whiskey is made using a combination of Scottish whiskey malt, and that's why it's not I'm not using a rye, I'm not using a bourbon. It is an American single malt whiskey, but they do use a portion of Scottish single malt whiskey imported from Speyside, and specialty malt from Belgium. So this delicate whiskey produces notes of sweet and earthy flavors, aged not less than 2 years. So it is a young whiskey, but it's very good. And it's certainly, I mean, I've drank most of it. Well, I haven't drank a lot of it, as you can see, but I had it neat, and it's perfect neat. But I wanted to try it in this cocktail. Like I said, it's sort of an amalgam of a Rob Roy and a Manhattan, because I've got that nice single malt whiskey, but it is an American whiskey. So, oh gosh, that nose is insane. So I did make a couple other adjustments too. They say to use a brandied cherry. I'm just using a dark cherry that you'd use in a Manhattan. An Amarena cherry, so it's along that same vein anyway. And instead of just your standard Angostura bitters, I use some cherry bitters to accent the fruit notes. Using a hollow stem coupe that my wife found, I'm not sure where. Can't remember if she got these in Columbus or found them at a thrift store here, to be honest with you, but they came from a thrift store. It's all muddled together now. I can't remember if she found them here after we got home or if she found them in Columbus. Oh yeah, that's an interesting drink. That is nice. So I've really been drinking a lot, or exploring a lot of American single malt whiskeys. And I've said before, what I love about the category is that it just covers so much ground. It has to be malted barley. That's the given. But what changes is the aging process, right? Many American single malts opted to use new charred oak, changing the game a little bit. And here's what they did different here. Well, what they did different here at Endeavor was using Scotch malted barley, Speyside malted barley, to give it more of a, even though it is an American whiskey, really give it a Scotch-like flavor and smokiness. And sweetness, for that matter. Gosh, that's gorgeous. So our show, what we do is pair a beer and a whiskey or a cocktail. Could be a straight shot, could be served neat, could be on the rocks, could be a cocktail, could be anything. But this theme is relatively new acquisition, so I'm using stuff that I picked up on vacation. And I had it in my mind already what I was going to use until I had this idea. I said, oh, but I have this. So now I'm confused because I've got two good cocktails and two good whiskeys to use with beer pairings. So I'm trying to figure out which direction to go here. So I have an American version of a Scotch ale to use to pair with this cocktail. Because originally I thought, I would do that with this neat, and then I had the idea to do sort of a Rob Roy with it. And although this isn't 100% traditional Rob Roy, it's not really a Manhattan either. So I like the idea that I'm doing kind of an American version of, with the American version of the Scotch ale. But then I also, the idea was to use a couple products that I had picked up in Columbus. This whiskey is from Columbus, but a different whiskey. I had another cocktail in mind using two products from a different distillery. And then a Columbus beer. And I already had that worked out, but see, now I've confused myself. Now I'm not sure which one to use. And there's not like we have hard and fast rules, because quite frankly, I tend to break them about every week. But I try, or every show, but I try to stay close. Oh, however, in my defense, I'm not the only one that kind of bends the parameters a little bit, let's just say. But I'm having a hard time, and although we're only supposed to do one beer and one whiskey pairing, I'm having a hard time not just saying I'm going to do two. Because sometimes I drink a little faster than those guys. Well, not usually, but on that particular show, sometimes, because Johnny's got that sports show afterwards, so he's kind of, moving through it, just doing the one, because he's got that other podcast to do later. And David's got to go to work early, so he's not doing a lot either, especially coming from Tuesday. And I've got to go to work Thursday too, but I don't have to be there till 3. But I wanted to try this cocktail ahead of time to see if I liked it, to see if it's one I would bring. And damn, I like it more than I hoped I would, to be honest with you. Because now I really am confused, because I had this other cocktail already picked out. I already had it formulated, ready to go. It was ready to go 2 weeks ago for the last show, but then the show parameter changed, so then I had to put that one on the back burner. So I'd hate not to use that cocktail because I really like it, but then after putting this one together, I really like it too, and I hate not to use this one unless they come up with another show theme that this cocktail would work, man. I just don't know. I'm so confused. So part of me thinks we'll put it on the back burner. Maybe it'll show up in another show later. And then the other part of me says, we don't know when that's going to happen. Just do both. Even though the show parameters are clearly one beer, one whiskey, sometimes I can't follow. I guess I've always been a bit of a rule breaker my entire life, which has got me in a little bit of trouble. I do want to point out real quick, though, slightly off topic. Finally got my pictures hung up, and I say my wife finally got my pictures hung up. I got these back in May for my birthday. I went to see Uriah Heep and Saxon at the Galois Theater here in town, and man, that was an incredible show. Uriah Heep and Saxon were amazing. I probably have more of a connection to Saxon, growing up in the 80s, that heavy metal scene. I wasn't necessarily a huge Saxon fan, but I liked them and was aware of them. And the same with Uriah Heep. I mean, everybody knows Steelin'. You gotta know Steelin', man. But seeing both bands live gave me a new respect for both of them. I mean, they were both so tight and amazing. And folks talk about sometimes lead singers losing a little bit over the years. You saw somebody in their 20s or early 30s. Now you're seeing them again in their 60s. late 50s or mid 60s, in some cases even 70s. Both bands were tight and spot on. And I'm telling you, that was amazing. I couldn't come up with one even constructive criticism for either band. Both shows were extremely tight. The musicianship was amazing. And the lead singers for both bands, I mean, damn. Neither one of them missed a note. They've clearly taken care of their voices. I mean, it was rather amazing, I gotta say. I started listening to a lot of both bands going into as I got closer to the show, and then after the show, now I'm hooked. Right now, I've gone back and I've really gone through both catalogs, and so now I know there's more songs. Uriah Heep has more tunes than just Stealin', and Saxon has more tunes than just Wheels of Steel. Being an 80s guy, I had to say I was probably drawn more to Saxon. However, is Uriah Heep was equally as impressive. I mean, their stage presence was amazing. Again, I mean, the musicianship was amazing for both bands. I will say the bass player for Saxon, though, that dude was a beast. He could play and had incredible stage presence. Again, it was a very 80s thing, being an 80s kid, but even though he seemed much younger, but yeah, I love that, the whole 80s feel of the whole thing, man. It was just amazing. So one more time with feeling, yeah, this is nice. Now I really am stumped. I was kind of hoping, it's a nice cocktail. I knew it wasn't going to be terrible because I'm using great ingredients, but okay, that's nice. But I really, really like it. I like a lot about it. I like the smokiness of the whiskey blended with the acidity and the sweetness of the sweet vermouth. I opted to go with cherry bitters instead of just your traditional Angostura, and I may change the bitters up if I do this again because I was kind of torn between a couple of different bitters because I've got a lot going on here. I got a lot of bitters, man. But I wanted to use the cherry bitters to kind of bring out the fruit notes, but I'm thinking about going a different direction if I do this again. Maybe go in toasted almond or black walnut bitters. I'm kind of deciding because of the smokiness. I think the toasted almond would blend very well, but I really like the black walnut bitters, especially going that we are into fall. I guess I was going to say going into, but we're knee deep in now. Man, that's really tasty, man. That's really good, man. I don't care who you are. That's just tasty. Endeavor was my first stop. No, that's not true. I was going to say it was my first brewery in Columbus, but I forgot we went to the Hofbrauhaus first. We went there mostly to eat, but it is a brewery, so technically that was my first. But then we went to, then my wife did some shopping, and I started at Endeavor. But this was the first bottle that I bought in Columbus. And the main reason I bought it, because I had so much stuff, and our vacation was just getting going, so I didn't want to buy a whole bunch at one place. So I was kind of buying one bottle here, one bottle there. Because there was a lot of stuff on there that I really liked. The reason I bought this was because it was different, right? It wasn't their bourbon, it wasn't their rye, it was something different. That's why I picked up that malt whiskey. And then I really am a fan of the American single malt whiskey category. So when I see distilleries that have that available, I tend to go in that direction. Oh my God, that is delicious. What makes this different is instead of just your regular Manhattan using a rye or bourbon, is that Scotch-like smokiness here. Then again, I can't quite call it a Rob Roy because I'm not using a Scotch. However, damn. But it's not really a Manhattan either, so I've got to come up with a proper name here. I was telling my friend about a cocktail I came up with the other day, and I didn't have a name for it, so he used like this AI app. He put in some parameters and came up with some names. I thought, huh, those are all pretty good names, and I would have never came up with any of them on my own. So I may have to do that here. I'm just not always that clever to come up with that name. But when he put those, he just said, "Okay, what do you want to say about this?" So I gave him a few words, and he put that in there, and it came up with these names. Oh, that makes sense. I don't know why I couldn't have came up with that myself, because that's pretty simple. All I did was, it was just various versions of what I said. So I don't know why I couldn't have put those together myself, but nevertheless. Oh, man. That is just beyond delicious. Oh. Now, see, for a while there, my hollow stem was staying hollow, but now you can see the drink has gotten all the way through there. It found a way around that cherry, man, that was blocking the hole. There was a dirty joke in there somewhere, I guess, but nevertheless, I'm the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist. You got to get past the cherry to get to know. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor of wisdom, and all right, good guys, Sláinte.